Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Toe the Line. Today I have a very exciting guest because it's my first interview kind of interviewing anyone in the NRL space, and you guys have been really wanting me to dive into the NRL space, so I'm very excited, but I guess we'll just get straight into the intro. So today's guest is probably most well known for his time playing as an outside back for the Broncos in the NRL. However, with an extensive career playing rugby league spanning over 14 years, he's a very well-known face in the space. He started his career with the Titans, where he debuted in 2009 and played till the end of 2016, before making the move to the Broncos for the 2017 season, and then retired from professional footy in July of 2022. Across those 14 years, he played a massive 171 games, scored 75 tries, and to make him even more impressive, he captained his home country of Papua New Guinea at the 2017 Rugby League World Cup. Today's guest is the very talented David Mead. David, welcome to Toe the Line.
Thanks, Taylor. I'm excited to be here and looking to see where we go with our chat.
Yeah, and when you hear those initial stats about yourself, does it still kind of feel real that that's kind of you that people are talking about?
Yeah, I think it's kind of something you don't really think about or
Yeah.
or talk about. I think
Mm-hmm.
until someone brings it up. So um, yeah, it's good. I guess when you're playing rugby league and you're in amongst it, you don't really think about how many games you're
100%.
playing or tries you scored or line breaks
Mm-hmm.
this that. You kind of it's just a way of life. And then
Yeah.
when you retire, you get a little opportunity to reflect on it and go, "Oh, that's pretty cool that I was able to do that."
Yeah.
And it was your dream as a kid to play the sport and to be able to have done that, and with a few games under the name.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to look back on that, and but in saying that, I had so many people helping me along the way. And if it wasn't for
Mhm.
those people, I certainly wouldn't have notched up that many games.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely, I know from my athletic background, people just talk to you about your own stats, but then they forget that there's like a whole team behind you. And, yes, you may have scored one try or done one time in the pool, but, there are the coaches, there are your other players in the team, you've got your physios and your mental health experts and all those sort of people. So it's never just about you at the end of the day, is it?
Yeah, well, it's with the trainers, the physios, the coaches, like you said, they're doing hours of
Yeah,
work to prepare you for the 90 minutes of opportunity that you get to train on the field each day,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
the
for
weight
sure.
session, obviously. So, it'd be interesting to see the stats behind the work that they put in. It would
Oh,
definitely trump,
100%.
yeah, it would trump the games that we've played or, the stats that we rack up anyway.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
many people involved in the background doing all the work, so we can't forget about them.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the first question of the podcast, probably the most important one. How are you? How are you doing? How has life been the past few months for you?
Yeah, it's been good. So since retiring, I guess July last year, I had
Hmm.
about 4 to 6 months of I guess I would say quiet time, but not doing too much. I was traveling back
Yeah.
and forth PNG, delivering a few programs,
Hmm.
community programs, and a bit of work. And then I started with the Brisbane Broncos in the business development space in January this year. And
Hmm.
the skills that I've been able to learn from my team here at the club has been phenomenal. I've been very grateful to be a part of that team in the
Yeah.
admin space, and that's been great for me over the course of the year. And especially in the past few months, we obviously the team went to the grand final and
Yeah.
unfortunately lost that one. But the last few months they've been great, despite the results, the grand final result for the club.
Mm.
Outside of the work with the Broncos, I am still traveling back and forth to my home country, Papua New Guinea,
Yeah.
spending a lot of time there with the community as well. So I guess in a way, it's been quite fulfilling these
Yeah.
past months, being able to be a part of another team that's delivering programs and projects in that space as well. So yeah, no, life's pretty good.
Yeah. Wow. I think one thing that I guess people at home forget, or even if you're in like the environment of being an athlete, I think especially in times like finals footy or grand finals, I think people get so hung up on the end result. But when you look back at the Broncos 2023 season, like yes, they didn't unfortunately win the grand final, but in like the grand scheme of things, like they did so well as a team, so like just so much success regardless of the end result. So I think it's unfortunately the grand final result wasn't there, but I don't think the Broncos can be like upset with how well they did, because they did they had such a good season.
Yeah, I guess everyone wants to win the grand final.
Yeah.
But I guess you got to still look at the positives out of the year that went by, because there's a lot of ups and downs in sport. But I think as a club, for the club as a whole, on the field and off the field, there's a lot of positives in terms of community engagement, fan engagement. I guess more wins throughout the year as well, and having a lot of people go to the stadium, enjoy the atmosphere, and I think just Brisbane as a whole got to enjoy the Broncos season this year. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's been great being part of this club. And I'm sure many people who are part of the organisation will tell you that it's a fun place to be.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get into your league career, I kind of first want to talk about your early years, family life, parents, siblings, school life, all that sort of stuff before you got into rugby league. So talk me through like those early years of your childhood and younger teen years.
So I was born in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, and spent 12 years of my life in a coastal village about 30 minutes out from there, along the east coast. Life was very simple. I went grade 1 to 5 there, and school was in pretty good condition at that time. It's a lot of kids going to school without shoes on sometimes, and very very simple upbringing. Played a lot of rugby league in and out of school. Just whether we had a rugby league ball or not, we'd use sometimes we'd use like an empty cordial or Coke bottle to kick around.
Oh, I love that.
We loved rugby league. Played a little bit of cricket in and out of school as well. Did all the things kids in the village do. I don't know if you've seen him on social media and stuff, but
yes, yeah,
kids in PNG and some of the islands there, and they're very simple upbringing. I grew up in a household that had uncles, aunties, single mum, cousins, grandparents. So very community style upbringing and living. And during those early years in the village, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents because my mum worked in town. And whenever I didn't go to school, I'd be jumping on the back of a ute with my grandparents to drive a few kilometres out of the village to go and help them with the farm that they had. They were subsistence farmers, planted yams, taros, bananas, tapiocas, all that kind of those things. So I spent a lot of time with them outside of school, and I went out because we were on the coastal. One of the coastal villages there, we'd jump in a dinghy, and my grandfather would take us out. My grandmother and a couple of other cousins or other extended family members go cast out the net, leave it out for the day, and then while that was happening, we'd go and pick up these seashells, fill up these rice bags with it, and come back. Reel the net back in and collect the fish and go home for the day. But I saw my grandparents, the way they provided for their family, their kids and grandkids. So I think I was pretty lucky to have that experience. And then at the age of 12, a lot of things changed when my auntie decided to adopt me into her family, to take me into Australia for educational purposes.
Yeah. How hard was that? How hard was it leaving Papua New Guinea, because that's all you'd ever known, and then coming over to Australia at the age of 12? Because around 12 is like quite a pivotal age in like someone's life as well. How was that kind of contrast for you?
Yeah, I remember it being pretty hard because I've gone from living with my mum in a house that's full of people to my auntie's house who loved me dearly and gave me an opportunity. Just to have that little homesick feeling for the initial first few years, but then also we learned how to speak English in school, but I wasn't speaking it at home, so I wouldn't say I was fluent.
Right.
When I came to Australia, that was a big challenge for me. I wasn't confident in speaking English or my comprehension understanding wasn't as good as it is now.
Yeah.
And so I'd say I was pretty shy and quiet for a couple of years before I was able to kind of feel comfortable in that transition. But yeah, definitely a very tough few years going from that environment to, I guess, Lismore, New South Wales.
Yeah.
In primary school, a lot of the kids are, doing music, dance, and very different to the PNG primary school in terms of resources.
Yeah.
So I felt very lucky and very fortunate to have that opportunity.
Yeah, wow. It's something just you never think of as someone who hasn't, because all I've ever known is living in New Zealand. I've never had to travel overseas, like I never had to like move countries as a young child or early teenager. It's just something you never think of unless you are in that situation. How hard was it leaving your grandparents as well? Because like from what you've said, it sounds like they were quite influential people in your life. How hard was that sort of disconnect?
Yeah, I guess it was, at that time, it was actually a pretty tough period as well because my grandmother had died a month prior to me leaving for Australia. And I think that was probably the reason why my auntie sped up the process as well, because she knew they were looking after me while my mum was working.
Yeah.
And so she passed away, definitely a tough period for not just myself, but the whole family.
Yeah.
And then leaving my grandfather, who was pretty much my dad growing up,
Mm-hmm.
he was, I missed him very dearly. I remember standing at the airport and he just cried and hugged me from head to toe before I left. So very, very tough leaving them.
Yeah.
But then, I was lucky enough to travel back nearly every year to go back and visit, especially during that Christmas period.
Yeah.
My auntie, who I call my mum now, is my auntie at the time, who I call mum now, and she always made sure that I was okay and my well-being was at the forefront of her mind. She brought me over to get a better opportunity at life, to have an education. So
Mm-hmm.
she constantly reminded me of that, and I'm very grateful for her, because if it wasn't for her, my life turns out very differently. But yeah, definitely it was a very tough period, but I think necessary for me to, I guess, pursue a better life.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned when you're talking about your early years that you played a lot of league with, kids in your community and at school and everything. When you moved to Australia, was it somewhere in the back of your mind that you really wanted to pursue rugby league, or was that not really on the cards at that age?
I've always wanted to play rugby league as a kid, professionally. I'd
I
be,
love that.
yeah, we'd have a TV set up, and the whole family would be sitting around watching rugby league on a Friday night or a Sunday afternoon. And
Yeah.
Brisbane Broncos and St George Dragons, where it was were the teams of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I was primarily St George Dragons because my uncle gave me a Dragon shirt and said, "You are supporting Dragons."
So you had no choice in that.
But the Broncos were still always kind of my second team. But yeah, it's something, I used to go to sleep as a kid, and I just remember just laying there and visualizing. I didn't know it was called visualizing at the time, but I just dreamed.
Yeah,
I'd lay there awake, close my eyes, and just picture myself running in a stadium and people cheering. Now, that's
that's crazy.
as young as 7, 8 years old. And but yeah, so when I get asked, have I always wanted to play NRL? Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. And
Yeah.
then I guess when I moved to Australia, I did play rugby union for 5 years before playing league,
Mm-hmm.
because my mates and my two older brothers were playing union.
Yeah.
They eventually made the switch to league, and yeah, was lucky enough to pursue a career. But definitely, rugby league was a forefront of my mind growing up.
Yeah, wow. It's funny how you mentioned like visualization and that like you didn't know that's what it was at the time, but you would just like see yourself on that field with all the crowd like roaring and whatever, because I used to do the same thing when I was younger, like with swimming. I would always like picture myself like when I was going to sleep, I'd always like picture myself like touching the wall first, or like getting a medal around my neck, or wearing like the silver fern on my chest or whatever. And I didn't know that it was like visualization at the time either. So it's just like funny how when you just really want something from such a young age, and then look at you now, like look at the career you have, it's just like crazy.
Yeah, it's probably just something you do naturally as a kid anyway. You know, just your imaginations are very powerful as a kid growing up.
Mm,
And I guess what probably happens as you hit your teens and your early adult or adult life is that it gets talked out of you. Your belief slowly goes away
yeah,
simply because of the environment that you're in, and
yeah, 100%.
I believe that plays a huge part in someone being able to live their dream out or be able to follow their passions because you might believe that you can play NRL, but if you've got 10 people, 10 closest people to you who don't believe you can, it's going to be pretty hard for you to listen
Yeah.
to your own voice.
100%, 100%. Yeah, that's so true. You kind of touched on it a little bit about playing league at school, but what were those early years of playing league, I guess, over in Australia like? You said you played union for a bit, but when did you kind of realize that you could really you could really pursue league as a professional career?
Well, it was pretty, it happened pretty quickly actually, because the year that I played under 18s rugby league, which was my first year, I was
Hmm.
also playing rugby union at the same time. So union on a um,
Yeah.
Saturday, league on a Sunday. But I guess before the season kicked off, there were like these trial matches that happened on the north on the in Northern Rivers.
Right.
So it was a trial match to make the rep teams, and Coach John Cartwright was there watching the. He was the head Gold Coast Titans coach at the time, and he was there that weekend. They were doing a lot of their recruitment around that Northern Rivers area,
Hmm.
and I played a trial game. It might have been my first or second game of league that I'd
Hmm.
played since Union, and I remember one of the guys coming up to Tony Durham and he said, "Mate," after the game, he said, "Mate, the coach John Cartwright was very happy with your game and he wants you to play for the Titans one day." And I said, "No way." And he said, "Come over, let's go meet him." So he walked over on the sideline and he said, "Hey David, how you going, mate?" Introduced himself and then he said, I remember his words. He said, "Would you like to play for the Titans one day?" And I said, "Yeah, I would."
No way. That is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and then it kind of just went from there. It was, I remember I got offered a contract. A couple of weeks later, I think it was, one of the recruitment officers made their way back down to Lismore from the Gold Coast and said, "He's a development coach, development contract. We'd like you to be part of our system, and we'll guide you along the way." But I guess my belief about playing NRL probably kick-started there,
Yeah.
and this could actually, the dream I had as a kid could potentially become a reality.
Yeah. And how old were you when you got that first development contract?
So I was 17 at the time.
Wow. That's young.
Yeah, it's young, but I guess this day and age, I guess it's getting younger and younger. There's a lot
Yeah.
of 13, 14-year-olds getting these development contracts and being put into academies. I guess just an opportunity to um, develop a bit earlier
Yeah.
and invest in these young kids, or the young kids being given an opportunity to invest in themselves a bit more to give themselves a chance to play in the NRL. So yeah, 17 was young back then, but I think it's getting younger and younger these days.
Yeah. And when you signed that first development contract, what were you thinking? Like, who did you call first? Who did you tell? Were you sort of just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was like, I just remember being over the moon and
Yeah.
driving back from Mullumbimby to Lismore at the time. I
Yeah.
lived in Lismore and the trials were at Mullum. So I remember getting home and then telling my mum, I said, the Gold Coast Titans coach came up to me after the game and offered me a contract. And
Yeah.
she was like, "What? What do you mean?" She didn't believe. She was like, "Yeah." So she was very happy and in a bit of disbelief at that stage. But I said, "I think we get like free tickets to Carrara Stadium, which was pretty cool." I think that's what the coach said. So I was very
That
happy.
was so funny.
I remember when I actually did sign the contract. It was I think it was a polo shirt and some free Reebok boots at the time, and
Oh
tickets.
my God.
My friend was moving with that.
That is so cold. That is just so funny. Free tickets. Like, I would have been stoked about that at that age as well. They're like, yeah, give me all the free tickets.
Well, I think everyone wanted to go watch the Titans play up close, so I had the opportunity to have some access. So I was very
Yeah.
happy about
100%. Sticking with the sort of early years, development contract and all that sort of stuff, were there any like influential people in those early years that you would say really helped you, developed you into the player that you became when you were playing for the Titans and the Broncos and captaining Papua New Guinea and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I guess besides the family support, which is very significant. They're making sure that you're happy at home, you're healthy,
Hmm.
sleeping, well, you're attending school. In the rugby league specific space, I would have to say they were my coaches.
Yeah.
I remember Coach Craig Hodges at the time, who he drove me when I signed with the Titans. The following year, after playing for Morris Brothers Lismore, I played for Tweed Heads, which was about an hour and a half drive each way. So that training was 3 nights a week and then playing on game day. So 4 sessions a week from Lismore to Tweed Heads, driving an hour and a half each
Jesus,
way.
that's
Uh,
crazy.
Lucky me, I didn't have to drive. I just sat in the passenger seat. My coach, Craig Hodges, was the driver, and I guess that those 3 hours that I spent in the car with him every second day was it developed me in the player and person that
Yeah,
I am today.
wow.
Because I remember the theme of his talks were always about developing good habits,
Yeah.
especially under fatigue when you're on the football field,
Hmm.
and developing good habits off the field as well. That helps you to uh, you know reach your highest potential. And I
Yeah.
guess spending that time with him, that year with him on the road, was just invaluable to me, and it'll forever stay with me because it's like one of those things. Those stepping stones to where you want to get to. If that step's not there, I
Hmm.
won't be able to take the next one. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, he definitely played a huge part.
Yeah, wow. It's almost like, I mean, obviously driving an hour and a half there and back isn't fun, but it's almost like it was kind of meant to be that way because of the knowledge and like just how much you gain from those 3 hours, 3, 4 times a week.
Yeah, well, straight after school, I'd finish school at 3:15, rush
Hmm.
home. I remember just getting a piece of apple or something and then getting changed quickly, and then he'd be at the front of my house at 3:30. So we
Yeah.
could get to Tweed Heads by 5 o'clock for
Hmm.
training to start at 5:15, 5:30, and then then done by 7 o'clock, getting home at 8:30, um, shower, dinner, jumping in bed, and then doing your homework, whatever,
Yeah.
and then doing that every second day. But
Yeah.
you know, it was when I look back and think about it now, like, man, how did you do that? But I think this is probably something that a lot of young guys do that who go on to play NRL. There's a lot of sacrifice that's involved with
Yeah.
uh, trying to make it to the professional level. You have to put in a lot of time and effort, whether it's in the travel that you have to do, or the knowledge that you have to try and gain. You're always going to have
Yeah.
to um, just realize that it's not easy and it's hard, but it's well worth it in the end.
Yeah, for sure. I think sticking on that kind of wavelength that you're just talking about sacrifices, I think outsiders who only get to see people's success, I think maybe don't see all those 3 hour round trip there and back drives or the sacrifices that you've got to make or coming over to Australia at the age of 12 and leaving kind of everything you've ever known. Can you talk us through some of, I guess, the harder sides of being a professional athlete, and even in those early days of your career, what were some of like the harder things that you really had to deal with and that maybe people who watch you on the TV screens don't get to see?
Yeah, I guess just talking about that 3 hour travel every second day
Yeah,
to actually go up there and then physically train as well, which is
yeah,
also very hard. It
yeah.
takes its toll, but that's part of the development process.
Hmm.
I guess in terms of physicality, that's probably the easier part of playing rugby league. It's the emotional
100%.
side and how you deal with um, setbacks that ultimately help you.
Hmm.
Well, that ultimately define whether you're going to make it or not is when you're late or when the coach doesn't pick you to be in the team straight
Yeah.
away. Sometimes you're training and you're not part of the first 13, you're on the outer edges. It can be disheartening, but you just have to, have the right mentality, right attitude, and tell yourself that if I work hard, I'll earn that spot. And
Yeah,
so
for
it's how you
sure.
deal with those moments and the injuries, and the fatigue, the worries, the stresses. They're the hardest parts of playing rugby league. In terms of physicality, if you educate yourself on the good foods to eat, the sleep, the hydration, stretching, ice bath, recovery, all those things. If you get those parts right, in terms of physically, you'll be able to develop yourself. And it's not an easy process, but it's the easier process out of the whole, I guess, holistic approach to playing rugby league. It's
Yeah, for
the
sure.
it's the emotional and mental side that, I guess, is the part that you need to focus a lot more on, because if you can get those parts right, the physical stuff can progress quite easily.
Yeah, for sure. And were you like exposed to kind of that emotional or mental well-being side of being an athlete when you were in those early days of being an athlete, or was it mainly focused on like the physicality and you just developed knowledge about the mental side of things as time went on?
I guess without realizing it at the time, I had the best physical, mental and emotional mentor on the road with me
Yeah.
to and from Lismore,
Mm.
Although the drive was hard, I was tired, I'd fall asleep a lot of the times.
Yeah.
The information and the feedback I got from this coach in that car, that is what helped me to physically be able to push through training
Yeah.
and wake up the next day and be ready to go again. So I guess, to answer your question, I definitely had exposure to that, to that kind of guidance, I guess.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I never really thought about it consciously until this moment. But it's when you look back on it, when I reflect on my career, it's all those moments that definitely help you. The coaches.
Yeah.
I remember having Trevor Gilmeister. You'd be training, you get so tired, but he just keep pushing you that extra little bit because
Yeah.
he believed in you. That's why. I guess, the
Yeah.
guys, if they don't believe in you or they don't care about you, they're probably not going to push you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
I definitely had that exposure at an early age.
Yeah. And in those moments, you're just like, I really hate you right now, but I know that I'll probably thank you in a couple of years'
Yeah.
time.
Well, they're the worst people in the world at that moment.
So true. You're
And then,
just like, I just don't want to be here right now.
yeah. And then when you catch your breath, they're okay. Then the next day, when you actually surpass the goals that you set, then you start to thank them, because they're there to push you and to get the best out of you. So,
Yeah. But you don't want to like let on too much how much you want to thank them in case they make you go even harder.
they'll definitely keep pushing if it looks easy. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, let's get into your professional career. Day one with the Titans in 2009. You're walking into HQ for the first time. What was going through your head? What were those initial feelings? What was kind of like the feeling kind of with you personally, but also in the team?
Yeah, I guess we had captain's run. I don't know if I think it was a Saturday. So we had
Mm-hmm.
captain's run on the Friday, I guess, if we did play on the Saturday, and then the coach Cardi came up and said, "Mate, just be ready. Prepare like you're playing because you could take the field. We'll just wait on Chris Walker to find out." And then
Yeah.
so game day comes. I'm still not sure whether I'm playing or not, but I'm preparing like I am. And then 90 minutes before kickoff, I walk into the dressing sheds, and Cardi comes up and says, "Mate, congratulations, you'll be debuting
Oh,
tonight."
that would do my head in.
Yeah. And I was just like, "Oh, whoa!" And I just remember seeing this smile on his face. It was kind of like a proud smile, like that moment that he told me, "Do you want to play for the Titans at Mullumbimby?"
Mm,
A couple of years later, it became a reality. He shook my hands in the dressing sheds, and it became a reality. So I remember the look on his face and how proud he was of me. Immediately, I thought about my family and just
yeah,
I went to the locker room, texted them, and said, "I'll be playing tonight." But I guess that whole
crazy.
90 minutes went by pretty quickly. I
Oh, I
remember
bet.
I remember getting my ankle strapped, and Matty Rogers comes up to me and said, "Oh, mate, you've played for PNG against New Zealand and Australia and England, so playing first grade um, shouldn't be as hard as that."
Shouldn't.
I think it was his way of instilling some confidence in me because maybe I looked a bit nervous or whatever. But yeah, I remember him saying that as we were getting strapped. But yeah, such an exciting moment, a proud moment, and I didn't think about it too much because I knew there was a game to be played. But then
Yeah.
after that, it was kind of like, wow, I can't believe it's happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I think, yeah, touching on that first game, that debut game, with every kind of rugby player that I've talked to so far, and I always ask them about that initial debut game, whether it's like for club or for, Super Rugby level, or whether it's like for the All Blacks or whatever, they always say how quickly that first game of like 80 minutes goes. And it's just like you don't think about it, you're just out there playing, and then after you're done, it's just like, oh my God, okay, now I can like reflect on it. What was happening in those sheds after that first game for you?
Yeah, I guess when you're sitting there, your teammates are sitting around you, you're high fiving, they're pretty happy for you that you've debuted. So you're
Yeah.
just enjoying that moment, soaking it up with your teammates. I guess there's a sense of I wouldn't say relief, or
Hmm.
maybe I guess relief because you're waiting for that moment for so long, you're hoping that it comes true, and then it happens.
Yeah.
But then shortly after that, you got to go jump in an ice bath. So you don't get an opportunity to think too much about it.
No.
But I guess after the ice baths, text messages come flowing in. You're responding to people. You're going to see your family out. I remember seeing my family outside in the car park, and they were
Yeah.
just so happy and proud. Just nice moments like that. But yeah, it certainly does go very quickly, especially after that first game.
Yeah. When you were, you mentioned, you would dream about that kind of moment when from like such a young age and everything. Do you think that first game with the Titans lived up to little David's dream of playing in the NRL?
Oh, it was so much more. It was, I guess, the reception that you get from the fans, how
Yeah.
happy they are for you. You don't really think about that too much.
Yeah.
That's an added bonus that you get.
Hmm.
Ultimately, I just wanted to play rugby league and score tries. I didn't get a try in that first game. The following week, I scored my first try. So
Oh,
uh,
yes, that's
yeah,
good. Didn't have to wait too long.
yeah, that's probably what made it feel like, wow, this is cool. I've lived my dream,
Yeah.
and I just remember thinking, I want many, many more of these moments. I don't want
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want it to just be a one or two game here and there. Um,
Mm,
as soon as you get a taste for it, you're just like, yeah, I want
yeah,
more.
for sure. Yeah, wow. So as the years progressed, what would you say some of your favorite memories were with, being in the Titans environment?
Yeah, I guess that debut would have to be right up there.
Yeah,
Playing semi-finals in the early days, uh, probably a highlight of the career. In between that and my last game at the Titans, we didn't play much semi-finals. It was
yeah,
and so it was those moments, playing semi-final football because that's where a lot of the hype is, and that's a good part of the year. But I guess outside of that, it was just the day to day, turning up to training and being around a bunch of guys who are hungry to improve themselves, to train hard, and to get the best out of themselves.
yeah,
Those
for
are the
sure.
moments that you remember, especially. No, I say it now that, I hated these army camps that we used to do, but the you'd come out of those camps and just be a lot tighter as a group. It's pretty
Yeah,
much
for sure.
3 days of getting flogged and being yelled at, tired, itchy from the grass, sore, all
Yeah.
those things. You come back out of that as really really good mates, and some good stories come out of those. So those are probably the highlights of my career in rugby league at all different clubs.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how pain and trauma can bring a group of people together.
Yeah, all these these guys didn't. in the army, the trainers, they certainly know how
Yeah.
to break people and bring them together. So a lot of- I guess there's a lot of gratitude for them as well.
Look, I can't say I will be doing that anytime soon, but I'm glad you guys experienced it.
Yeah, and I would recommend it to a lot of sporting teams, because it's one of those things where I remember Wayne Bennett telling me after one year at the Broncos, my first year, he said, "Media." It was after the 3 days, and we've just got back
Yeah.
to and still pretty much in our army gear, and we sat down and it was all done. It was a relief, and then he comes up, sits next to me, and goes, "Meaty, I love that. I love that kind of stuff, eh?" Like, oh, that's good, because he did the whole thing with us. He didn't, he wasn't just there.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, why is that, Wayne?" And he said, "Because you know what? It makes you feel like a man." I'm like, "Yeah, well, gee, thanks, Wayne." It's
Yeah.
but he had a point there, because I think you have to, if life's too smooth sailing and everything goes your way, I think you become soft. I think
Yeah.
it's when you go through a lot of adversity and perceive those adversities as a opportunity for growth,
Hmm.
life becomes better. I think you become a
Yeah, for sure.
human being. So yeah, he definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows his stuff, Wayne. He's been around the game for long enough, and he's lived
Yeah.
a while to know a few good lessons. So that's one thing I remember from that.
Yeah, wow. That's funny. Speaking of the Broncos, you made the move to the Broncos for the 2017 season. What made you move to the Broncos, I guess, and leave the Titans after so long with them?
Yeah, I guess at the time, I guess it was opportunity. At the back end of 2016, I was
Hmm.
in negotiation with the Gold Coast Titans, and nothing ever eventuated from that. So
Yeah.
I decided to make the move up the road. It wasn't too far away from our families, for Tinu and I. Her family was on the
Yeah.
Gold Coast, was in Brisbane. So
Hmm.
we had an opportunity to go to Sydney, but at that time, it felt like a long move away from family.
Yeah.
And that was one of my top values, having my family close. So we didn't want to
Hmm.
be too far away from them, and I decided to come to the Broncos. But then, in saying that, the team that the Broncos had was pretty good, and I wanted to become a part of it. So,
Yeah.
a couple of those points were the main reasons for me moving to the Broncos.
Yeah. And having been in that Titans environment for so long and kind of getting used to the people, the coaches, the staff and all that sort of stuff, what was it like switching those environments? Because I know from me personally, I know when I had to change environments with being an athlete, it was quite disruptive because you get used to something for so long and then you've got to change it up and it's like, oh, it's a bit different. And you like having the kind of set things in place, especially when you're training really hard day in and day out. So what was that kind of environment switch like for you?
Yeah, it was my switch was pretty good. You obviously get pretty nervous and uncomfortable those first few days, because you just don't know what the squad's like, what the new environment's going to be like, the
Mm.
new staff. You don't really know. You're uncertain. But I
Mm.
felt pretty comfortable within I guess, the first week or two of preseason at the Bronx. I didn't initially when I signed. The few weeks of in between, you're just a bit nervous, I guess, because there's
Yeah.
a big change coming, and
Hmm.
get so used to your training environment, your own locker space, your teammates. You're also sad saying goodbye to a lot of your teammates who you've been with for many, many
Yeah.
years. So that's a big challenge in itself. Yeah, so I guess those things, and then you're moving homes, you're moving cities,
Yeah.
uh, and then your partner has their challenges as well, because
Hmm.
they're leaving their friends, even though it's only an hour up the road. It is a change in lifestyle for them as well. So
Yeah.
you're juggling a few things at once, which can be tough. But I guess, kind of like anything, if you just jump into it and embrace it, um, without trying to, you know, not complain, but um, just not realizing that it's an opportunity.
Yeah, for
It,
sure.
life becomes, it can become a smooth transition. But I think, when I first moved to France, there was a whole heap of new challenges that came with that.
Yeah.
And being at the top of the world to your family and all of those things that I said, multiplied by 10.
Yeah.
And then the French, and English language are obviously very different. So it took me probably 6 to 12 months to get used to it, because I was always thinking of, what's life like back home, rather than just accepting and embracing that we're going to be there for years.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess at Brisbane, I was like, yeah, we've made the move. Let's accept it, and let's make the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about one game in particular of that 2017 season with the Broncos, and that's the semi-final between the Broncos and the Panthers, and the Broncos won that semi-final 13-6. And many people, especially in commentary, say that was one of your best games of your career. Can you talk us through what you remember of that semi-final against the Panthers and what you think made you play so well in that semi-final?
Yeah, I guess I was coming off the bench, and unfortunately, Corey Yates he got knocked out, head injury. I think he got stretched off on one of those cart things, and
Yeah,
I got the
yeah,
opportunity to get on the field. But just kind of like anything, you just prepare yourself as best as you can, and um, I wouldn't say there was any different mentality to that game to the week before, the week the season before. I guess just it's just one of those things where maybe the ball goes your way a lot more, and you're involved a lot more, and
yeah.
they say it's your best game. But yeah, I remember being out there having fun, and then obviously winning, which gave us an opportunity to
Always
go.
good.
Yeah, that always
Yeah,
helps. But I guess in terms of one of your best games ever, you just try and go out there and play the best you can each and every
yeah, for
week.
sure.
The reason for that, you can never really put it down to one thing. Yeah, I think if you prepare yourself the best you can every week, then you give yourself a good chance to, uh, get the best out of yourself.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. 2017 was like a massive year for you. Obviously, you've just gone to the Broncos for that first initial season, and then you also captained your home country, Papua New Guinea, at the 2017 Rugby League World Cup. What was that experience like for you playing in that World Cup, but also captaining it as, for your home country, Papua New Guinea?
Yeah, that was a great experience. I remember being so excited for that because,
Yeah.
Port Moresby, the place that I was born, hosting 3 games. My
Hmm.
most of my family living there, and they were able to come watch the games, and just a huge um, emotional experience, emotional ride
Yeah.
for not just me but my family, and I'm sure my teammates as well. We
Yeah,
had
for
those three
sure.
games there, and each and every day was exciting for
Hmm.
everyone. You go from your room to breakfast to at the hotel, and everyone just wanted to talk rugby league and how excited they were. And then you go from hotel to training field. You're on the bus. Everyone's sitting there talking, and when they realize it's the Kumul's driving past, they're jumping up and down, cheering. So you get that kind of love and admiration, which is yeah. That you remember those moments. I guess personally, I remember those moments, and I cherish those moments
Yeah.
just as much as the games that you're playing, because it's not every day that you get to drive past someone on a bus and they're just jumping up and down, waving at you. So that's pretty
So
cool.
true.
Especially, at a stadium when you're playing a footy game and people do that, you can understand. But when you're just driving past in a bus and they do that, it's extra special.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
it was, and obviously being announced captain for that. I was the previous year I was announced captain, which is a huge honor, and I was able to
Yeah,
kind of embrace that and soak that in. So to be able to captain your country in the town that you were born in the city that you were born in, it was quite
yeah.
special.
Yeah, I can't help but think back to the very start of this chat when you said that, you would like go to bed dreaming about playing in like packed out stadiums or whatever, and then here you are all these years later captaining your home country in your home country. Like I just can't imagine what that would be like for you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, especially the convenience of all my family being able to travel from the village to
100%.
Port
Yeah.
Moresby as well, only a half-hour trip. they weren't always able to come to any NRL games in Australia.
Yeah.
For them to be given that opportunity to come watch the games,
Mm.
very special. And yeah, it's something that's I guess will live with me forever.
Yeah, for sure. After that that 2017 international season, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you did make the move over to France for 3 years where you played for the Dragons in the Super League. What was that experience like as a whole? How different was kind of the Super League over in the Northern Hemisphere compared to playing league in the NRL in Australia?
I guess a few differences. The game's just as tough.
Mm.
In terms of physicality, very similar. I wouldn't say there's too much difference. There's probably
Yeah.
anything, just a few little technical things that are done better here in the NRL more consistently. Probably in terms of the wrestle, different game tactics.
Mm.
Not too much different, but those are little things that I noticed. The game, and obviously the weather's very different. It's a lot colder over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a challenge in itself as well. It's yeah, I remember my first game being snow, and yeah, it was a warm-up game, and I just remember my hands are just shaking.
So different to Australia.
Very different, yes. Even like, colder than Canberra at its coldest. So
Yeah,
it,
crazy.
yeah, I guess those things are slightly different. My experience as a whole moving there, I wouldn't change a thing because we're able to experience the French lifestyle those 3 years and met a lot of great people, learned a bit of French, ate some great food, and
Yeah.
created some great and lasting memories. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
probably ate too much, too much nice, delicious French food there. But I'm glad we did.
You only live once.
The old snails and the snails on a Sunday afternoon with some bread and
Mm.
garlic. Uh,
Can't say I've ever wanted to try snails, but if you're saying they're good, then I'll probably have to try one.
it's kind of it's kind of like the texture of a calamari,
Oh yeah,
and it
okay.
has a little bit of gooey stuff on it. But it's all part of the experience.
I reckon if I close my eyes and do it, I should be okay. But if I'm seeing it, then there's no way.
Yeah, just don't look at it. Yeah.
Look the other way. After a 3 year stint over in France, you came back over to Brisbane where you re-signed with the Broncos for one more season before you retired in July of 2022. And it was quite sudden as well. What kind of made you make that final decision to retire from the NRL?
Yeah, well, I remember going into preseason, and then you know, as a professional athlete, when you turn up to training, you want to do everything you can to help you perform on the field. My
Yeah.
desire to do all those little things wasn't as strong as previously, and I just felt like,
Yeah.
okay, I think my time's coming to an end now. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was training just as hard, pushing myself, but in terms of just pushing that extra little tiny bit, that desire
Mm.
was getting, I guess, less and less.
Yeah.
And then the season kicked off. I remember doing my knee at Wynnum. It might have been around 2 or 3, and then
Yeah.
I was like, I'm ready to be finished now. I remember talking
Yeah.
to my welfare officer, and he said, "Mate, get your knee right and get back on the field because you don't want to regret any decisions." And
Yeah.
did the rehab process, got my knee right, played a few games for Wynnum. I was starting to feel good, and then the PNG game was coming up, PNG versus Fiji.
Mm.
But I might just try and make that one and then see how I feel.
Yeah.
So in the lead up to that, um, I kind of had an idea that that would be my last game.
Mm.
And a few days before, I spoke to my wife, Tennille, and said, I think this is going to be it. I'm going to make a call. And she said, yep, go for it. I think she could, if anyone can see your daily habits and
Yeah.
how you do things without even saying a word, it's going to be the person closest to you.
Yeah.
And, yeah, she just said, yeah, I knew this moment was coming for a long time, but I'm glad you're doing it for PNG and your home country, and I think it's a good way to
Yeah.
go out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how it came about. It was sudden, but I think going back to the preseason, talking about all those little things, the willingness
Kind of
to
been like building up. Yeah.
it had been building up, and I think it was just a nice way for me to finish off. And say thanks to the PNG and the rugby league NRL community for all the good times, and I'm ready to make a change.
Yeah. And speaking of Tennille, how important was she in, your NRL career? Because I know, when I talk to athletes, especially in team environments, they always say how important, that person is for them at home, their rock and all that sort of stuff. How important and like integral was Tennille in the process of you becoming the player that you were?
Yeah, I can't even imagine I can't even express how important she was, because she just do all those little things. I sound little, but they're actually big things. Just making sure the fridge is full, the kids are well looked after. You've got home cooked meals, the house is in good order. She's making sure that you're happy, you're healthy.
Yeah.
And that and so much more. So how important is she? Probably the most important person in my life. Since playing NRL, and plus it's someone who also keeps you on track as well. You can think of probably going out and partying and drinking and doing all those things that will potentially cut your career short. She always just made sure that I was in line and following my dreams.
And I'm sure she wanted you to achieve all your dreams as much as you wanted to achieve them. So having that like double belief from her as well probably made your life so much easier as well.
Oh, it's very powerful, because without her support, care, and love, it's playing that tough sport. It gets harder. So I think she was everything in this in my career when we first met in the early days, and she continues to show her support post rugby league, and she works very hard, make sure that happy, make sure that the kids are happy and well looked after. So she's everything.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking back to that first game with the Titans versus your last game in the NRL with the Broncos, how would you say over that 14-year span, how did you change as a person, as an athlete? How do you think, looking back on those 14 years, how did you change in the way you played your game, all that sort of stuff? Because 14 years is a long time, and I can imagine you learned a lot along the way as well.
Yeah, definitely learned a lot of about the game with experience and knowledge, and I hope that a lot of, I guess, maturity kicks in as well, because you get kids, you then become a leader of the team, of the group that you're around, because there's constantly new young guys coming through and the older players are retiring. So that's a transition that I guess naturally occurs in that process. Those are probably a few things that come to the top of my mind, and your skills as a leader, they certainly do develop, because you've got to be able to, especially playing for PNG, you've only got a few weeks if it's a World Cup, or if it's just a game, it's a very short week. So you've got to have the ability to bring the team together and go out and play together. So I think those are a few things that occur in that 14-year stint, and also meeting a lot of great people, on and off the field. They help you as a person, and I think that's very important as well. And there's a lot that have played a huge part in my life, and I'll forever be grateful for them. People who I either still stay in touch with now, or I haven't spoken to in a while. Everyone's played a part in the process.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. So let's talk about life outside of being a professional athlete. You, like we said, you retired in July of 2022, which was last year. So we're talking roughly 14 months. And I was saying to you before we started, it feels like so much longer, and I don't know where the year has gone, but we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. What have you been up to in those 14, 15 months? Tell us what you've been doing outside of the NRL life, although you're still sort of in it.
I'm still sort of in it. Yes, I'm typing instead of running around the field now. I guess when I first retired, I had about probably 4 to 6 months of no scheduled workplace. I was traveling back and forth to PNG, doing a little bit of work over there, and also a bit of community program deliveries in the corporate space, and also in the rugby league and community space.
Mhm.
That was over a few months, and then come January, I was fortunate enough to get a job with the Brisbane Broncos in the business development space, and I've been
Mhm.
working with them ever since. It's a couple of days a week, so met a couple of great teammates in that space, and they've helped me to develop a few skills outside of rugby league and be able to, um, you know, I guess learn how to, write emails and talk to people, um, how to communicate in a way that brings more sponsors into the club. So that's what I've been doing since then, and yeah, certainly enjoying the process. But then also speaking gigs here and there, which I
Yeah.
enjoy. Yeah, Q&As, whether it's a school or university groups, corporate space, different
Mhm.
workplaces, rugby league scenes, where it is. Yeah, a little bit of everything, which has been fun and enjoyable.
Yeah. Sounds like you've been up to a lot.
It probably sounds like a lot, but it's yeah. I'd like to say I'm busy, but yeah, no, I still do get a bit of free time over the weekends to go
Yeah.
kick the footy around with my two boys, which I really enjoy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Speaking of those two beautiful boys, I was saying to you earlier, I love when you post stories of them on your Instagram because they're so funny. But how do you think being a professional athlete, I guess, has helped you in being a father? Because not everyone gets their professional athlete in their life, and yeah, I guess my question is, how do you think it's helped you in being a father?
yeah, I guess yeah. In terms of being a father, I don't know if being a professional athlete or not a professional athlete would have made too much of a difference for me, but I guess
Yeah.
you prioritize someone else in your life. Then they
Mm,
become the focus of why you go to work and why you provide. I guess as a professional athlete, you probably get a few insights on helping them to go to that next level in terms of, I guess, training, nutrition, sleep, well-being, all those kinds of things. They're the
yeah.
things I've learned in the professional space that I probably wouldn't have learned in another job. So I guess
Mm,
that's probably where I can help them, or I do help them.
yeah.
I'm pretty big on living healthy. So
Yeah.
being a professional athlete, that certainly helped me. And I think I try and make sure that they eat healthy most of the week. Um, and I guess being a dad, in general, playing, I think playing's pretty good. I think it needs to be emphasized more that go kick the footy around or go throw a tennis ball, whatever, play some cricket
Yeah.
with, and put your phone away when you're playing with your kids. I still
Yeah.
catch
For
my
sure.
you know phone call comes through and then it takes priority and then you get distracted. Um, but I think I try to be as conscious as I can about just spending that time with them because they do grow up very fast and time does go by quickly when you've got kids in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
For
think
sure.
that's probably how professional sports has helped me. But then I guess in terms of normal, if I having a normal job now, it's still the same. I just want to spend time with them.
Yeah. For sure. Um, Kind of to wrap up things before we get into some of the questions that people have sent in. Looking back on your massive 14-year career in the NRL, can you pinpoint kind of one thing that you're most proud of in your professional athlete career?
Um,
I know it's
I'm
a big question, so sorry to put you on the spot.
You might have. I might have an hour to think about this. I guess if it's on the field, I would say winning the Challenge Cup with the French team in the UK. That was pretty amazing experience at Wembley.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, at Wembley. Oh, wow. How cool.
yeah, that was a great experience. And I guess off the field, one moment. Oh man, it's very hard to. There's been so many great ones. I guess it's probably yeah, very hard to. You put me on the spot here, Taylor.
Sorry.
I swear I'm going to say something, and then later on I'll be like, I should have said this instead.
Okay, how about you can send in a little video recording of yourself when you think of one good thing?
Something comes up. Actually, there's probably one thing. I think it's not one particular moment, but I'd say this is probably the number one thing that sports taught me, and this is why I encourage people to take part in sport, is that it teaches you how to deal with the ups and downs. And in life, we go through a lot of ups and downs, and it's how we deal with those that defines how we feel on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's a very important lesson.
Gosh, good answer. There you go. Okay, I've had a couple of questions sent in from people when I put up an Instagram story. So the first one, I'm not sure if you'll be able to remember this one, but we'll give it a go. What was going through your mind when Scott Prince nailed that crossfield kick to you against the Sharks in 2011?
Catch the ball. That's all. If you actually look at the video, I missed the jump by about 5 meters. So if I missed it in total, he would have been very, very angry and upset. So,
oh my God, that's so funny.
But yeah, I think when I caught the ball, it was kind of just an instinctive thing, and then I think the camera angle and stuff makes it look probably 10 times better than what it actually was.
Well, thank the camera angles then. Next question is this will probably be a hard one, and when I saw it I was like, oh, I don't really want to ask him that one, but what NRL club did you most enjoy playing for and why?
I've only played for 2. I can't pick one. Yeah, this is a tough one. Gold Coast Titans, I always have a soft spot in my heart for them because that's where I got my opportunity. And the Broncos, because a lot of my friends are here now, and I made some great friends and memories. So I won't be able to give an answer on that one. Sorry, Taylor.
Okay. No, I knew you wouldn't. How did you manage your time between being an athlete and being a father and a husband?
Yeah, I guess, when the schedule to train is number one priority. So you're here and then you're trying to do trying to make the most of that schedule. And I guess it probably goes back to, what I said about putting your phone away when you don't need it. When you're with your kids, just make sure you spend time with them. Be conscious that that's probably the only hour or half an hour or, however long you're going to get with them. So make the most of that. I try and read books with them before they go to bed. That's a moment for us, and then spend a bit of time with Tennille as well after the kids go to bed. So I guess probably just like everyone else, I'm trying to go to work and then spend time with them. But I think it's very important that when you're there, you just be in that moment.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I've caught myself out doing it, being at work sometimes, and you're thinking of being at home, and then when you're at home, you're thinking of being at work. So just and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure. If you could go back and play one game over again, what would it be? Another tough question.
Another tough question. Yeah. It's probably one that, there's been so many that you've lost and you've replayed in your head over and over again about doing things.
If I just done that, or if I just stepped that way,
Yeah, like a professional athlete, I think if I did that, this would happen, this and that.
Yeah. If
it's one game, probably, so hard, eh? It's those semi-final games where you're like, man, I should have just ran harder and done all those things. I can't pick one out in particular.
Yeah, for sure. And then last one, what's one piece of advice, you'd give to young players who want to make it into the NRL? Another tough question.
Piece of advice. Another tough question. There's always a couple of things, but if it's one, I would have to say it's always going to be your attitude to improvement, and whether you're going to listen or not. I think that defines whether people play first grade or not, because some of the best players, they're just open to feedback and continuously improve themselves. So have an attitude towards improvement and learning, and I think you give yourself a pretty good chance.
Yeah, great advice. I did put you on the spot there, so that was good. David, that is all for today. I am so incredibly grateful that you took the time to talk to me today, and I'm sure my listeners are going to love hearing from you. yeah, just thank you so much. And I just really loved this chat. So yeah, any last words you want to give to the people who listen at home?
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. This has been great. I've certainly enjoyed this chat, and to all the listeners, thanks for tuning in. I know I spoke to Taylor 2 years ago now. We met, and I knew she
Yeah.
had a huge heart. She's overcome many, many challenges. So there's going to be, you're going to hear a lot of gems, a lot of gold come out of her brain and into yours. So make sure you pay attention. And I've certainly learned a lot from you, Taylor, about our chat from many 2 years ago, because overcoming challenges, especially the ones that you have, makes me feel I should be able to overcome anything. So you certainly gave me that. They gave me that inspiration, and I'm definitely sure that all your listeners and your viewers are going to get the same thing as well. So thanks very much for having me on the show or podcast, and I wish you all the best for this moving forward as well.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And that's it for today, guys. So make sure if you're listening on audio, then you hit the follow button. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And I will see you guys next week.